So go ahead and have a seat, coming up and sitting comfortably. And be conscious of the contact through the sits bones into the ground, into the earth. And be a little bit more participatory in how you push the sitting bones down into the ground, leaning the pelvis slightly forward while the legs activate and the low belly all the way around the spine turns on. And the belly, front of the belly, starts to look backwards. So can you experience this pushing down of the sits bones while the belly scoops itself and gravitates towards the deep surface belly to deep belly? So there's a little bit more enthusiasm in the activation of the lower half of the body, providing a lot of buoyancy and invitation to flourish and open in the upper branches of your embodiment. With a few more conscious exhalations, just releasing the skin, releasing the atmosphere just outside the skin. Like rain falling and inviting the release of all the exterior experience, and also at the same time softening and opening the interior experience. Beautiful. Let's come up to standing. Let's start in the shape, the key of standing. And take a moment on your feet, look down at your feet. And turn the feet straight ahead, parallel. Keep the feet relatively close together. Unlock the knees and grab onto the earth with your feet, toes, and all of the plantar or the sole of the foot grabbing on, but without fear or control, until you feel an activation that funnels and fountains up through the lower leg to the knee. And the knee unlocked up to the upper legs, pelvis maybe, buttocks are turning on without tucking the pelvis. The orientation of the pelvis is level versus tucked or spilling forward. You might even be able to feel just from that spark in the feet that the entire lower half of the body is asking, that the energy of the participatory tone is moving now up all the way through the entire length of the body to the crown. So we're already immersing ourselves in a specific tonality of presence. We start to let the pelvis move side to side very slowly. And straight away, feel how the feet are moving the earth side to side. So there are many ways, many motives in our movement. If you can orient to the ground and in the full height of your stance, move the planet side to side with your feet. So there's a bilateral pull and push. And the hips begin to move reciprocally to that pull push. So if you're moving the ground to your left, your hips are going to the right. And if you're moving the ground to your right, the hips are going to the left. And so this tone begins to give us a sense of slowing our velocity, and also engaging more thoroughly, globally. The arms begin to participate as you start to realize that you're moving in water, moving the earth, immersed in water. Let the head for now relax somewhere near the midline. So it's interesting how the feet are moving the planet, but the feet are relatively still. And let the head also be in the midline, relatively still. And you start to increase your range of motion as the side bodies warm and reorganize to this rhythm, to this dance. You start to open the side body more and more, opening the hips. You might now start to let the head turn and look, maybe down or up, and try different things, always looking for variation without reinventing the wheel. So each of us are going to have, we are specific filters and translations, each of us unique translations of creative energy. If we can only allow it to move through us as freely as possible, get out of the way enough to allow for that movement. Now the footwork comes in. We start to turn a hip. One hip turns in or out. The feet begin to become lighter. The heel pops up every once in a while. You turn on the ball of a foot or turn on a heel. And so now we begin to play with not only this bilateral movement, side-to-side movement, but also you might end up turning to one side, a quarter turn to the right or to the left, and you end up with a natural asymmetrical stance. And then in that asymmetry, you're pushing and pulling the earth forward and back now with your feet. Really, it's with your whole body. Pushing and pulling, and go half your current speed, slow way down, and go twice as strong. Moving through molasses and the earth, such deep inertia, such deep presence, pushing and pulling the ground with your feet. Turning around to the other side when you feel you need to balance yourself out. Anytime you do something asymmetrical, there will be a time limit where you start to fatigue and you want to play that edge for a little while and then transition to a different movement that helps balance out that movement. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to really commit, and this is fiber to fiber, cell to cell, bone to bone. The breath is open, we remain curious, pushing and pulling in the moment to have an experience. So you can play on your own for the next minute, turning 180, moving to the asymmetrical stance, or you can also play in that middle space that we began in, where it's bilateral, where it's moving side to side. All kinds of combinations begin to come in. Bend the knees more, you drop your gravity center, working the lower body a lot more. Also adding what you can to moving the arms, moving the shoulders, moving the spine, moving the eyes and the cranium. So that you begin to realize that so much is possible within the form of human. We begin to find rotation and twisting in the spine, which is revolution in the spine, is where the pelvis and the head are looking in different directions. You can back bend, you can look up, you can balance. All of these different ways of translating human movement. Try balancing on one leg for a moment and let the free leg move around. Let the whole body move around. And see if you can find actions, movements that balance the tendency for the leg you're standing on. That hip is going to fatigue very quickly. So let your movement balance that out, giving you staying power. switching sides when you need to, taking your time in that transition. So it doesn't have to be immediate to balance on the other leg. Free balancing. And as you balance, can you move the earth around with the standing leg, the leg you're balancing on? Pushing the earth forward and back with the standing foot or side to side is very, very interesting and difficult maybe to feel, since when we balance we want something stable, but it adds a lot to your movement. And put both feet on the ground and come into relative stillness. And let there be some slight rhythm of movements, maybe side to side as the hips very slowly move across the midline, working out any residual tension from what we've just done in the past few minutes. Tap into your breath and allow for the breath to touch the legs, to touch the pelvic floor, to touch the pelvic interior, to touch the deepest belly. And the space behind the heart and the lungs, get behind the kidneys, get behind the mind, the back of the cranium, get behind the voice and the back of the neck. So as you move side to side, tone the moment, let the breath be behind you, find the breath behind the breath. Now we're going to take the right foot forward and the left leg just a little bit back in a short asymmetrical stance, which you've already visited. But now what we're going to do is focus on elliptical movement. So as we move front to back, just start to draw in your mind, feeling the movement of the pelvis, a long elliptical path. So you're going to have a little bit of a counterclockwise or clockwise pattern as you move front to back. Now allow for the legs to turn in, out, independently of each other. Change the direction of your orbit. And the right foot is in front. Change the direction of your orbit whenever you need to. So you go from clockwise to counterclockwise or vice versa. It's really important always to train the rotation of the hip and the knee and the foot on one side with itself. So where the right hip points, the right knee points, where the right knee points, the right toes point. Especially that last piece, it's the foot and the knee that gives you the sustainability that will heal the knee with everything that we do. Dropping the pelvis a little bit, bending the knees, you get into sort of kind of, if you're familiar with cat stance from the martial arts, when you rock onto the back leg, onto the left leg. And when you come forward, there's a little bit of almost a back bend, where you can really load onto the front leg, lean back, and find the extension of not only the spine, but the right hip, both hips. And then before we fatigue, to change sides, you can just step the right foot back and have the left foot dropped in front and continue. And start what usually is a linear movement, becomes an elliptical movement. It's very narrow at first, but it's very long, front to back. And you may find it very different moving clockwise versus counterclockwise. So this is giving a lot of curves, are very powerful in nature. There's very little straight line linearity, except for light, and even light bends around gravity wells, planets, and stars. So when we move in curvature, it adds a lot of deep, rich complexity, which it translates as deep medicine. And you're going to get into the places and the joints and into the flesh where it can be difficult to find otherwise. The key of standing is relatively low range of motion, but there's still so much to experience. So remember, often slow it down and strengthen the movement. Use the arms more. Pull yourself forward onto the left leg and then push yourself back onto the back leg. You can lift the front leg when you rock back. You can lift the back leg when you rock forward. Drop the hips, bend the knees, coming down to lower, still standing. Oh, I should be getting nice and toasty now in the lower half of the body, if not, maybe the entire body. And then coming up to standing and letting your movement become relatively small, dropping the big movement away lovingly until we're standing very close, feet close together, and still that steady, easy rhythm, whatever that is, a slight rocking. Because the movement is what moves energy, and the pulsation, the rhythm, like the shaman's drum, moves energy. Now, if we can take this a step further and work the legs, we're going to take the feet wider apart and do that consciously, dancing the feet wider apart until, like, if you're familiar with like a horse stance from like the martial arts, where the feet are maybe 3/4 of the legs length apart. And we're going to bend the knees. And for now, track the feet and the knees straight ahead in your stance. And we're going to push off one leg over to the other side. And then doing the opposite, moving the ground side to side. And be very conscious, try to turn the knee on one side where that foot is pointing, or point the foot where the knee is looking. They need to agree most of the time. Now, to open up a much wider range of motion, you can start to find your footwork where you start to turn out. And we're still going to stay in our side-to-side movement, but you're going to be almost turning to one side, where we start to recognize another shape key as standing starts to blend in with a crouch. Typically the crouch is on the ground, hands are low on the floor, but here we can have a crouch standing. You can turn from side to side. Also take your time in the middle, playing around with the bilateral initiation in this movement. Try to let the tone be replete through the belly, through the buttocks, through the lower half of the torso at least, if not the entire body. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Breathe. Keep the pelvic floor free and open. Yes. Now, from here, as you come back up and lengthen your legs, you can shuffle and dance and find the footwork to bring your feet closer together. We'll come back to some standing later on in class. So bringing the feet relatively close once again, knees unlocked. Grabbing onto the ground consciously, which opens the channels so that energy can naturally flow up through the midline, through the mid-space, coming into the moment. Great. Now, for the shape of folding, bend the knees and drop the hips before the head. Dropping the hips down towards the ground and then folding at the hips. Go ahead and fold over the top and let the fingertips come down and let the head dangle, let the head hang. So if you bend your knees enough, you'll be able to put the palms on the ground and grab on with your fingertips and move the earth side to side with now both your hands on both of your feet. I like to straight away kind of look around and loosen the neck. There's so much complex and rich entanglement between shoulders and neck. So as you engage the earth, pressing the hands down, pressing the feet down, and moving side to side, and you let your head softly turn left to right to left, you start to consciously unravel some of that codependency which is just caused by the holding tension. We all do it. It's in the eyes, it's in the jaw, it's even in the tongue and in the teeth. So if you push your hands down more and take more weight onto the hands and let the knees bend, you can really engage the core. Pushing down into the floor means that the kidneys lift away from the ground. Walking your hands around a little bit, you now start to turn to one side and you end up, the fold becomes a crouch. So where we were standing in a crouch, now we're folding in a crouch, and we move front to back. And then you might be inspired to bend the knees more and drop into squats or variations of squats. Playing around with your monkey business. So here's a side squat, variation of a side squat that's just happening spontaneously. It's really important to use the hands to assist as you transition out of deep knee flexion, making sure that the thigh and the foot point in the same direction. Use your hands so that you can experience the full range of motion, but you can assist, you can self-assist, and keep the knees safe. And this is how you heal the knees if you're consistent enough in your tone and in your alignment over time. A couple more moments, everybody. So go ahead and come down and have a seat and just land. It's quite a journey already. So sitting comfortably, take your time. And as you close your eyes and softly land your awareness on the movement of the breath and everything that you're feeling, this is always an opportunity when we pause to take responsibility and really enjoy how consciously stirring our systems is so yummy, so beneficial and healing. So the movement of energy, the movement of blood, the movement of life, you can feel it in your feet. Maybe you can feel it behind the knees. You might be able to feel it in the pelvic floor, in the pelvis, around the sacrum. Or maybe you feel it as a sense of ease in the neck, the cranial space, the shoulders, the arms. It could be everywhere. And maybe some days you don't feel much at all. And that's good too. It's just, we don't judge. We try to drop our expectations. And remember that it takes time to open things up enough to cultivate the subtler and subtler feelings, the subtler awareness of the movement of the chi, prana, breath of life. Let's take the legs wide and keep the knees a little bit bent. Now the toes point up, the knees point up. And what we're going to do is, we do this little phrase often, is dive in on either the left or the right side, leaning a shoulder over that knee, it doesn't matter which, and then pass through the middle to the other side. And as you go right through the middle, your chest is level. And as you make your way to the other leg, you're dipping that lung and that shoulder over that same side knee, and then we're going to come up. So we're going to cycle through, it's sort of a teardrop shape. As you lean over one side, pass through the middle, over to the other side, and come up. And please allow me to remind you to stay very strong in the loaded hamstrings, meaning, well, all the hamstrings are loaded, but the side you're leaning over and into, you need to really pull that back, the back of that heel down into the ground. Pull that same side heavy sitting bone down into the ground so that you're active, the flesh is active and supporting itself the entire time. So we have complex eccentric and concentric and complex contractions happening here all at once. So when you lean onto one leg, you're in eccentric contraction in those hamstrings. As you move across to the other side and then come up, you're in concentric contraction on the side you're rising up on. So you can let all that go unless that's a study for you. You really want to feel how can you tone your entire body. So move the earth with your legs and move the water with your torso. Salud. Soften the brow. You're going to notice that after several revolutions, several cycles through this, things are opening rapidly. And here's the beautiful part, because you're not isolating stretch with a slack tone, you're actually maintaining deeper flexibility over time. So work the buttocks, work the inner thighs, work the hamstrings. 30 seconds now. Low back is receiving a fantastic medicine right now, reorganizing the sacral plexus. And then what we're going to do is next time you come up, just sit cross-legged with either leg in front. And go consciously into that seat. And once again, a whole new wave of experience of receiving the experience of how you're feeling. And see if there is a parallel in any spaciousness and abundance and emptiness that you feel in the body. If there's a parallel between that and the same qualities in the breath. Now, start to move side to side. And as we lean side to side with the legs crossed, it becomes more specific to the hips. Where the last shape we were in and sitting and folding at the same time, it was more about the legs. Now it becomes more about the hips and even more deeply the side body. So as you rock the boat, now you can really feel moving the planet from side to side with your pelvis and with your legs. So don't just move the ground with your sits bones. Use the contact surface of the legs to also move. The torso is going the opposite way of the ground. As you lean your head to the right, the movement of the earth is to your left. So just a conscious monkey on a big playful ball. The mother ball, moving the ground side to side. Slow it down. Where you feel a stretch, you want to strengthen locally. So that side belly, the exposed side belly, you have to turn those buttocks on to get the belly to activate sometimes. So the QL is gonna activate more deeply if you can turn on the buttocks, the same side body. Now put the hand down and start to take it into the shoulder, starting to lean in. And with one leg in front, it doesn't matter. We're going to change the legs in a moment, but be very conscious of how you load the hand. The hand should be closer to the pelvis, and you can use your free hand to assist. Also keep the neck as relaxed as possible. The shoulder that's loading is taking the weight. You're going to probably tend to lean towards the pinky finger side of the wrist, but avoid that. Push into the index and thumb and grab on with your fingertips so the loaded hand is very active. And keep the elbow right next to the torso, almost touching the kidney. The head can look around, you can look up, you can look forward, you can look down, but try different things. This is one of the most powerful things that I know, that The key of sitting, moving side to side, loading the shoulders, which is rare without equipment. Also really opening and strengthening the hips and clearing the kidneys, clearing the large intestine, ascending and descending. I mean, the list goes on. It's phenomenally medicinal. Now we're going to add to this. Next time you come up, switch the way the legs are crossed, and let me show this. There's a way that you can twist doing this, that you can revolve. And so what we'll do, we have the other leg in front. Let me just show. As I go to one side, I'm going to put both hands down. And instead of looking forward, I'm going to turn my head to look back. But the trick is as I enter the push, I'm going to pull the shoulder blades all the way together. And you're going to have a low side. Here I'm on my left side. My left shoulder and chest are low, but I'm going to look to my left. And then as I come back up, regardless of the legs, go over to the other side, both hands, pull the shoulder blades together and look behind you. So the furthest that you'll turn, if you touch your head to the floor, is going to be just near the temple, just outside the brow. So one eyebrow will touch near the temple if your spine is open enough. Go back and forth and feel this. Really draw the scapulae together. Look behind you very softly. Keep a strong belly. If you can counter-rotate properly, as your head looks behind you, your belly will look to the front of the shape. So if you're looking to your left, your belly turns to the right. If you're looking to your right, turn the belly to the left. Pelvis 2. It's really important to keep the shoulder head away from the floor on the low side. Just a few more. Let the breath be free, the wind through the trees on the mountain. Keep the elbows in close to the midline. It's easy to flare the elbows out wide. Try to avoid that. And then coming up and sitting relatively in stillness. And, something that you may notice is the more frequently that you practice and the more familiar we are in being in our core, certain mantras of embodiment begin to run on their own. For example, just as I came up and sat, I let the pelvis lean just a little bit too far forward to get more to the front of the sits bones, and then the belly gently emptied itself backwards, which is a kind of tone, by the way, to complement that until the pelvis is neutral. This is something you can do often. Another way to do it, try it right now. Let the pelvis roll all the way back, dropping the chin, rounding the chest, rounding the shoulders, emptying the chest, and then pull the ground back with your sits bones to sit all the way to the front of the sitting bones as much as the hips allow and the spine allows. And then let the belly scoop itself to the spine, and your pelvis will back up a little bit to what you could call neutral. These things play out more and more frequently in our high frequency of return, which means our higher visitation in awareness. So let's play a little bit here. Drape your hands over your knees. And one of the most powerful things we can do is individuate the pelvis and really clear the hips. So we're going to allow the pelvis to roll back like we just did a moment ago. This time, as the pelvis rolls to the back, you're going to lean over to the left a little bit onto the left sitting bone, and then let the pelvis sit forward, leaning on the left sitting bone. So your torso is leaning to the left a bit. Then let the pelvis fall back on the left side, all the way to the back, and then it rounds to the center, and then let the pelvis sit up, moving right into the center as far as you can. Pull the sitting bones way back. Turn the belly and the buttocks on. The chest will open. There's a little bit of a back bend here, and then let the pelvis fall right back down the middle. When the pelvis is fully rotated back, lean over to the right side, onto the right sitting bone, and then pull the right sitting bone back and lean forward into the right side of the equation. Fall back on the right side, just sweeping the floor of the temple, roll the pelvis back into the center, and then sit up through the center again. So we visit the center every time between the sides. Please, I can't emphasize this enough, your belly, especially the low belly, and all of the front belly needs to be engaged. Roll back to the center, dropping the chin, roll over to the left. It's like you're basically tracing a round bottom W as seen from above. Sit forward on the left sitting bone. Fall back on the left sitting bone, hooking the pelvis back to the center, then sit right up through the center. Fall back down the path of the center, over to the right, and then lean forward on the right side. Powerful. Everywhere you feel a stretch, you must support. Fall back on the right. Let's do this another round or two. To the center, pulling the sits bones back, right up the middle. Strong belly, low belly especially, pulls back to the sacrum. Fall back down the middle. Sit over on the left side and draw yourself way forward on the left sitting bone. Fall back, down the left side, and then to the middle. We're going to come right up the middle. One more time. Let the pelvis roll back through the center, over to the right side again, and sit forward on the right sitting bone. Let the pelvis roll back on the right side, find the center, and then just sit up to neutral right in the middle. See if you can feel everything that we just did reflected in the base of the cranium. So behind the right ear, all the way across the ledge under the occiput, over to the base of the knob, the mastoid process behind the left ear. And this is mirroring the freedom of the pelvis. Now switch the way the legs are crossed. Good. Let's do this just for a few moments in the front aspect of the pelvic movement, which is a lot shallower front to back, but you're going to be making like an M shape. M as in movement. So sit all the way to the front, right in the middle, pulling the sits bones back. Then fall back just a little bit, midway back, scoot over to the left side, and then pull as far forward on the left sitting bone as you can. Okay, now from here, go across the front to the middle, that left wing of the M, and then fall back just to neutral in the center. Then sit as far forward in the center as you can, and then push the pelvis over through the front of the right side onto the right sitting bone and back up to neutral on the right sitting bone. Sit forward as far as you can on the right sitting bone, hook the pelvis to the middle, and fall back to neutral in the center. Sit all the way forward in the center, scooping over to the left, fall back to neutral on the left sitting bone, even though you're leaning to the left. Sit forward left, curve, lean the pelvis forward to the center, fall back to neutral in the center, in the middle. Lean all the way to the front in the center and hook over to the right, leaning back to neutral on the right side. So think of an M seen from above. Lean forward on the right, curve the pelvic bowl to the front center, and then back up a bit to neutral. It takes a little while to find. Lean all the way to the front center, hook over to the left, fall back a little on the left. Lean forward on the left, curve to the front, center, fall back a little. Lean all the way to the front, hook over to the right, and fall back a bit on the right. Sit forward on the right side, buttocks on, curve to the center, and then just allow the pelvis to back up to neutral. And then once again, feel the correlation in the release of the occiput, the whole cranium being released off of the spine, opening the AO joint, the AO union, atlanto-occipital union. And you get taller through release. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go through a couple of sequences to finish that I'm going to guide you through detail for detail. Sit with the right leg in front, cross-legged. And this is going to challenge you a little bit in your upper body strength, but you'll be able to modify and find your way. So sitting with the right leg in front, what we're going to do is just lean to our right and put the right hand down and do what we did before and kind of push. Now you can go as far into this as you want. You can use your left hand to assist. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up, push over to the left side. Now we're going to look to your left, put both hands down outside your left thigh. And as you lean into this, fly your right leg way off to the right and up into the sky. Let the heel go higher than the toes. Okay, and then from here, put your forehead on the floor, keep the shoulder blades together, and then what we're going to do is lift ourselves up into side plank on the left hand using both hands. In fact, you could actually just keep the right hand on the floor if you want to, or you can have the right hand off the floor, and the left foot is in front of the right foot in a reverse scissor stance. Then what we're going to do is turn the left toes towards the floor, so the left ball of the foot is grounded. Put the right fingertips down in front of you, and step the right foot over the top and forward into a lunge. So now you're in the shape, key of lunging. And you're going to move around and celebrate your life for a moment here. Trying different things, mostly where the pelvis goes, variations of the pelvis going high and low or forward and back, turning the hips in and out. We're going to walk our hands slowly around to the left. 180 degrees. Set up like in yoga, it would be like a warrior two stance, but let the back heel come off the floor a little bit and bend the back knee. Leave the left fingertips on the ground inside the left foot and lift the right side body, lift the right hip, lift the whole right body, bend the left knee. Now, put both hands down and slide your left leg underneath. Okay, and turn your belly towards the sky into a reverse plank, taking your right hand behind you and underneath you as well. So you end up in a reverse or an inverted plank. Lift the hips, stay here for a moment and move the chest side to side. Then try to turn to your right and balance on the right hand into another side plank. The right leg will be leading. Tuck the right toes under, stay on the ball of the right foot. Then step your left leg over the top and in front of the pelvis. The left foot in front of the pelvis. Like this. And then you're going to have a seat. Lower the right hip down. You end up sitting with the left knee stacked on top of the right, like in a cow face pose from yoga. Left knee on top. As soon as you land, the breath changes. The transition from whatever we were just doing, the intensity of that, the engagement of that to this. But go ahead and turn your legs on. Really turn all of the flesh of the legs on and sink the knees down and lean forward. Try to be strong enough in the engagement of the left hip at least, so that you're not feeling a specific stretch. You're feeling a deeply engaged movement as you lean over the top. And then we're going to come up. Keep the legs and just simply, without the hands, just turn your chest a little bit to the left and lean back and to the left, opposite your right hip. Kind of leaning like just slightly back and slightly to the left. You may look to your left, turning the head away from the right knee. A little bit of a side bend with some revolution in the spine. And then all we're going to do is come up and pause for a moment. Now, if you extend your left leg out in front of you with the knee bent and bring and set your right leg so that the knee is up and the right foot is close to the sitting bone, put your left hand on the floor outside the hip and lift your hips off the ground into a long split squat. You also have the option here of lifting the left leg, floating the left leg, and if you have the strength and then the right knee's okay, take the hands off the floor and keep the hips off the ground too, in a pistol squat. Then you're just going to wrap your left leg around in front and sit cross-legged with the left leg in the lead. So that was a lot, wasn't it? So we'll go through this sequence a few times and, trying to follow something like this, I bow to you. It's difficult to translate. And yet, because it's close to what you might define as functional, your body sort of figures it out, maybe even before the mind. So we're going to lean to our left hand down, and let the right hip come off the floor. You can go as deep in as you can safely with the shoulder. Belly strong, stay on the front of the left sitting bone. Then we're going to pull back up, go over to the right, put both hands down. And as you lower into your push, take the left leg and fly it off to your left, and lift the heel higher than the toes. Then from here, extend the right leg out underneath you, the right leg in front, and push up into side plank with both hands. Then balance either on both hands or just the right hand. Turn the right leg towards the floor, toes tucked under. Step the left leg over the top into a lunge, left leg leading, of course, and move around. Now your movement will have patterns because you have specific bone structures. Right? There's going to be patterns that will be more available to you, and these are good. This is another aspect of functionality. We're going to walk all the way around to the right, 180 degrees, setting up kind of warrior two legs and letting the back leg turn out 70 degrees, picking up the left heel, bending the left knee, come up onto the right fingertips inside the right foot. And as if there's a giant rubber band around your right knee and your left heel, move these 2 points away from each other. Breathe, lift the left side of the body powerfully away from the ground. Then put both hands down. You're going to slide the right leg underneath you, turning to your left, balancing on the right hand. Turn the toes and belly towards the ceiling, dropping your left hand on your left side. Take a moment here, lift the pelvis, bend the knees, open the chest. Turn to your left, side plank on your left hand. Now the left foot's in front. Step the right foot over the top in front of the pelvis. Lower the left hip down, folding the left leg, and you end up right knee on top in Gomukhasana shape. Land and enjoy the landing. Activate the legs, pre-engage before you lean forward. The wisdom here is to engage enough to alchemize the stretch sensation into right engagement. And then as you come up, you're going to lean a little bit. So look over your right shoulder, gently lean back and to the right, kind of leaning diagonally back and to the right, away from the left hip. And you're going to feel it in the left hip and turn on the left buttocks and the left belly. Draw the left kidney back. Push the right knee down on top. And then as you come up, extend your right leg out in front of you. Set your left leg inside, close to you. Use your right hand, lift the hips off the floor. Then maybe lift the right foot off the floor and maybe take the hands also off the ground. And then wrapping the right leg around in front and sitting, returning to our start point with the right leg in front. Take a few moments here and enjoy everything that you're doing for yourself and everything that you're undoing as well. Once again, let's lean to our right and push into the right hand, or both hands if you need to. You take care of your shoulders. The right shoulder head pulling away from the ground as much as you can. And then come up, and as you go over to your left, put both hands down. Fly your right leg way off to your right, leading with the heel. Take the heel and the foot higher. Then slide the left leg out underneath, bring the feet to the floor, and lift up into a side plank with either the left hand down or the right hand down, or both. Step over the top. So turn the left leg towards the floor, step the right leg over the top into a lunge. Right leg leading. Move around in the lunge. And when you back your hips up from the lunge, you're in a long crouch, just to distinguish the shape change. These shapes we hold loosely, but they are gateways into movement. We're going to turn to our left, 180, and set up like warrior two legs, bending the left knee, lengthening the right leg, and unlock the back knee as you lengthen it. Let the right heel float. Put the left palm down on the ground inside the left foot and push the ground down so fiercely with your left hand that the right hip lifts, the right kidney lifts. And then from here, both hands down, step the left leg underneath and to the right, turning to your right, a quarter turn, side plank. Turning towards the ceiling, carefully drop the right hand on your right hand side. Stay here for a second. Reorganize, lift the hips. Turn to your right into a side plank. On the right hand, step the left leg over the top, the left foot landing in front of the pelvis. Lower the right hip down to the ground, sitting in the stacked knee, like cow face, left knee on top. Pre-engage, the legs especially, and fold over the top. And as you come up, look left, softly turn the head to the left and lean back and to the left. Sinking the right hip down and forward into the right. Sink the left knee down, push the left knee down on top of the whole thing, anchoring. Reach your arms out in front of you and to the right to counterbalance. You can lean back a little more. And then coming up, extend your left leg forward. Set your right leg inside, the right heel close to the buttocks. Left hand on the floor, lift up onto the squat on the right leg, maybe float the left leg, maybe take the hands off the ground too. Wrap the left leg around in front and sit, left leg leading. And last time in this, we're gonna lean to our left, onto the left hand. Strong belly, keep the belly close to the spine without tucking the pelvis. Push back up, go over to the right, both hands down, fly your left leg way out to the left and up. Slide the right leg out, come up into a side plank with two hands. The right foot is leading in a scissor stance. Pivot onto the ball of the right foot, face the floor, left foot steps over the top into a lunge. Play, which means curiously look for variation in what's possible, driven more by intuition than the mind or the intellect. Walk around to your right 180 degrees and set up warrior two legs, since that's familiar to most people. The back heel slightly off the floor, bending the right knee. So you're pushing the right knee forward and reaching the left heel back. Put the right palm down inside the right foot and lift the entire left side of the body by pushing the floor very energetically through the right hand. Both hands down, slide the right leg underneath as you turn to your left. Right foot leads, side plank on the right arm. Turn towards the ceiling, dropping the left hand on your left side. Try to keep the hips up if you can. Lift high through the pelvis. Look to your left, another side plank. Turn the left foot towards the floor and step the right foot over the top in front of the hips. Lower the left hip down and sit, right knee over left. Pre-engage the legs, which means just intelligently wrap everything, buttocks, legs, belly, body, leaning forward. So strong in the right hip that you'll notice you get deeper range of motion when you're not stretching, when you're engaged. Breathe into the side body, side belly. And then coming up and leaning back and to your right. Reach your arms forward and a little to the left as you lean back and feel as the left hip is so anchored. Turn on the left buttocks, the left inner thigh, the left belly. And then as you come up, extend your right leg straight out in front of you. Set your left leg in close. Right hand down, lift the hips off the floor. And this is a great place to hang out. You can also lift the right foot and take the hands off the floor too. And then do a back flip. Okay, then wrap the right leg around in front and sit. Let's take a few moments here. We're going to do one more phrase before we finish, but I want to have a few very sweet, conscious moments of sitting and the relative rest. And so when we're comfortable, there's often an invitation for the mind to just kind of run away with itself, which is normal. But if you can very softly yoke your awareness back to all of the beautiful feeling, all of the spaciousness, the quickening, always the quickening, without expectation, then that would be enough of a mantra to anchor you in the moment. Some of the most powerful threads are pelvic orientation and gravity, and then how the belly and spine follow that impulse. So if the pelvis is leaning too far back or too far forward, where's your neutral point, which we played with earlier in some exercise? And then does the lumbar stack? And when the lumbar stacks, is the belly engaging backwards as it should, functionally? What a beautiful feeling.
What is the quickening?
The quickening is this feeling of everything being stirred and awakening. And just kind of, even though we've experienced it many times, the quickening is that it's difficult to describe. The entire system is rising, is opening and reorganizing into presence. Quickening usually describing kind of an initiatory, or like even a rite of passage into higher vibration or power. So we're going to come up to standing for this last sequence. So make your way consciously to stand. Okay, so this one's fun. It's really simple, pretty simple. Simple, what does that mean with Sean? So look down at your feet, just as we did before, and make sure that the feet are parallel and relatively close. And I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see better from the side. What we're going to do is load the left leg. So balancing on the left leg, by first, we want to soften the knees and drop our energy down into the pelvis, into the core. Lean onto the left leg and slowly pick up the right knee straight in front of you as high as it will go. Okay, and then from here, we're just going to reach across the midline and touch the ball of the right foot to the floor. Then here, you're going to turn your feet to the left enough to uncross. Then shift your weight back on your left leg and slide the right leg back into a standing crouch. And we're going to drop the right knee towards the floor. Then while you're here in your standing crouch, you're going to turn the back leg out, the foot and the knee turning out together until the right heel can maybe touch. Drop the hips a little more. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, let the right heel come off the ground as you touch your left hand to the floor outside the left knee. Stay here for a moment. Put both hands down. You're in a crouch. And what we're going to do is push off the floor, come back up to standing, and then hop your right foot behind you across the midline. So now you've got left leg crossing the right. Yeah, now stay here. Take the right arm up, bend the knees, move your hips to your right, side bend to your left, and bend the left knee forward as you go. Try to untuck the pelvis, turn the buttocks on. Look down maybe at your back foot. Strong through the whole body. And then as you come up, lengthen the legs, melt, look to your right, and then step the right leg out into cat stance. Right foot leading cat stance. Loading into the left hip just a little bit more. Then hop your right foot across the midline in front of your left leg. So now you've got right crossing left. Take the left arm up, bend the knees, hips to the left, and side bend to your right. Bending the front knee more and more. Look down at the back foot. Draw the low front ribs back. And then as you come up, lengthen the legs. Shift your weight onto the back leg. And we're going to sweep clockwise, as seen from above. Sweep the right foot around. and return to where you started. Now unlock, if you're tired, unlock the knees, softening the entire system. So, dropping down into the core, coiling, we're going to shift our weight onto the right leg and pick up the left knee, chambering the left knee high, and then reach across the midline, step over the fence, and touch the ball of the left foot across you, across the midline. Good. Now turn your feet to the right, good 45, 50 degrees. Slide your left leg back behind you, dropping into a standing crouch, lowering the left knee towards the floor. Stay upright in the torso. Stay here for a moment. Now, turn the back leg and hip out until the left heel maybe touches. 70, 80 degree turn out in the back leg. Drop the right hand down to the floor outside the front leg. The left heel pops off the floor. Both hands down for a moment. Stay in the crouch. There's a remnant here of triangle pose. And then, pushing off the floor, stand back up again. Hop your left leg over to the right behind you, crossing right over left. Now, swing the left arm up and bend the knees, lean to your right. Hips go left, bend the right knee. Pull the sits bones and the belly back, look down on your right side. And then as you come up, look to your left, step your left leg out in front of you into a cat stance. Staying loaded on the right side is challenging. Then step the left leg across the front, across the midline. Left leg over right. Take the right arm up. Drop down and bend knees. Lean to your left. Hips go right. Bend the left knee and pull the sitting bones back so you're not tucking the pelvis. The low belly pulls back to the spine. Look down over your left shoulder. It's not a pose, it's a shape. You're still micro-moving. Then as you come up, lengthen the legs, lean onto the right leg, and then counterclockwise, arc the left foot around to the left, and turn, quarter turn to your left to release. Pause for a moment. We'll do the sequence one more time before we are complete. Not that we're ever going to be complete, but you know what I mean. Let the hips move a little side to side to dissipate any residual tension from what we've just done. Keep the knees unlocked, feet active, sacrum very wide. Okay, one more time, everyone. So here we go. We're going to stand on the left leg. Consciously load the left leg. Pick up the right knee. Chambering, reach across the midline with the right leg and touch the ball of the foot over the midline. Turn to the left, quarter turn, spinning the feet. Slide your right leg back. Standing and then bending the right knee towards the floor into a standing crouch. Now we're going to slowly allow the right leg and hip to turn out until the right heel touches the long cat stance. Drop the left hand down to the floor outside the left leg. The right heel should come off the floor. Both hands down for a moment. Playing. Push off the floor, stand back up. Hop your right leg behind you across the midline. Left leg crossing the right. Take the right arm up. Hips to the right. Side bend to your left. Bend both knees, but especially the left, and try not to tuck, so you can pull the sits bones back, and then scoop the low belly to the sacrum. And then as you come up, look to your right, step the right leg out into cat stance. Then cross the right leg over the left. Swing the left arm up, bend the knees. Side bend to your right, bend the right knee more, look down, both knees bend, untuck, really hollow the belly. And then as you come up, turn clockwise from above, arc the right foot around, and return. Quarter turn to your right to standing. Last time, bend the knees, drop onto the right leg, pick up the left knee, very consciously lift the left knee, cross the midline and touch the ball of the left foot down over to your right. Turn out a quarter turn to your right, slide the left leg back into a standing crouch, dropping the left knee towards the floor, the hips further back, away from the front foot. Let the back leg turn out with the hip and the foot. Dropping the left heel, take the right hand to the floor outside the right knee, both hands down, dropping into a crouch. Push off the floor, come back up. You're going to shift to your right, hopping your left leg across the midline behind you. Right crosses left. Take the left arm up. Bend the knees, hips to your left. Lean your upper body to the right, side bend to your right. Bend the front knee. Very powerful through the mid-body. As you come up, look left. Step your left foot forward, out to the left into a cat stance. Make sure that the right foot and knee are pointing in the same direction. Then cross the left leg in front of you over the midline. Sweep your right arm up, bend the knees, side bend to your left. Bend the left knee more, deep groin, deep kidneys. Then coming up, look to your left, and arc the left foot around as you turn a quarter turn to your left and stand. Bend the knees, drop down and fold for a moment, moving around side to side. And releasing residual tension as you hang your head, push your palms into the earth, and lovingly throw the clay side to side, very consciously. And have a seat, and come lying down on your back. It's amazing how resting is a practice of self-allowance. I'm not necessarily talking about sleep, but the alignment, agreement with the qualities of surrender that actually facilitate a waking rest that is sometimes deeper and more profound than a sleeping rest. This has long been known, recognized, that we can choose to release in deeper ways than even sleep provides. So once again, lay your bones on the earth. Give your breath to the sky. And exhale, empty the soles of the feet, the soles of the hands, the sternum, the breastbone can transform into feather, wide and soft. Empty the space under the lungs, between the ground and the lungs, between the ground and the heart. Release the earth itself underneath you. So the recognition, the acknowledgement of relative freedom and the change and the shift that we can facilitate for ourselves in a relatively short period of time is profound. Empty the mind, let it exhale. Empty the blood, the energy of the blood purified in a single out-breath. Empty all of your skin, all of the visceral intelligence, especially the gut and the pelvic floor. Open the temples and the sides of the cranium. Breathe wide, inhaling to the fabric of the side bodies, and exhale, stay wide. And so take your time in your transition. And of course, choose to stay in your rest if you need to, especially if you're listening to the recording or you're at home. But take your time in a very conscious transition from your rest to the movement of the rest of your day or your evening. Amazing, everyone. Beautiful, beautiful practice. Blessings, deepest gratitude.